The kid who buys his first BMW thinks he is buying a car. He is actually buying a 30-year apprenticeship. The Bavarian Motor Works has been running since the E21 chassis went into production in 1975. The apprenticeship is not advertised at the dealer. The dealer does not explain it. The warranty does not cover it. Most apprentices wash out at build 2, a small number, and the published BMW CCA Club Racing roster runs the names, if you want to count them, reach build 7. A single-car garage on a side street in Lakewood, Ohio, March 1998. The garage is unheated. The space heater is a kerosene-ready heater with 3 cans of fuel under the workbench and a smell that the kid's mother will eventually notice in his hair. A 1985 BMW 318i E30 chassis, 204,000 miles on the odometer, paid for with $1,200 in saved restaurant busser money and a handshake at a side lot on Detroit Avenue. The seller did not disclose that the third cylinder is dead.
The kid does not yet know that the third cylinder is dead. Walk build 1 in order and the apprenticeship comes into view. Build 1. The 318i M104 cylinder iron block from the 1960s engine family. 101 factory horsepower when the car left Munich on a Friday in October 1985, and somewhere closer to 65 horsepower on a Tuesday in March 1998 in Lakewood. The kid does not yet have a compression tester. The kid does not yet know what a leak-down test is. The kid does have a Haynes manual purchased used at a half-price books for $11. A YouTube account and a snap-on torque wrench his father bought new in 1979 and never used hard enough to wear out. The first oil change takes him 3 hours, and the first oil change strips the threads on the drain plug because the YouTube video did not specify the torque spec for an M10 oil pan, and the Haynes manual was a paragraph short of the relevant table.
He drives the car 20 minutes to Sears for a helicoil kit. He installs the helicoil. The drain plug holds. The car is now permanently down a millimeter on oil pan thread depth, which will not matter at 60,000 miles and will matter at 120. He does not yet know which mileage he will reach. Build 1 teaches the lesson that 2/3 of the work is the diagnostic that you do not do because you do not yet have the language for what is wrong. The car runs. The third cylinder is dead. The car still moves. He drives it to school for the rest of senior year. Build 2. The first BMW meet. An empty parking lot behind a strip plaza on Madison Avenue, October 2003. He is 22. The car is now a 2000 E36 sedan, 328i, with a 5-speed manual that he bought for $3,200 after the 318i finally lost the head gasket. He has installed a short shift kit, a strut tower brace, an intake, and a catback exhaust, in that order, across 9 months. The total dollar investment in the modifications is $1,400, financed across 2 Discover cards. The senior at the meet is a man in his 40s with grease under his fingernails who has been running an E30 M3, the original 1988 S1 4-engined homologation car. The kind of car that goes for $90,000 at Bring a Trailer 20 years later, but in 2003 is still treated by some of the population as a high-strung 4-cylinder hatchback. The senior walks around the kid's E36 once. The senior does not speak. The senior walks around it a second time.
The senior says the strut tower brace is the wrong brand for a daily driver. The intake is loud and slower than stock above 4,500 RPM because of the heat soak in this engine bay. The exhaust is too loud for any HOA you might live under in 5 years, and the short shifter is fine. The senior walks away. The kid does not yet have the language to receive that critique without resentment. He drives home angry. He drives home and thinks about it for 3 weeks. Build 2 teaches him that the style is not the loud parts. The style is the restraint of installing only the modifications the car needs to be a better version of itself,
and the discipline of not installing the modifications the car only needs to look more modified. Build 3. The First Track Day. NASA HPDE1 Group, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, May 2007. He is 26. The car is now an E46 M3, a 2003 coupe in Imola red with the S54 inline-6, 333 factory horsepower, 6-speed manual, purchased used at $20,400 after the E36 was sold to a kid in Cincinnati for what he paid for it plus $700. He has installed a coilover suspension, larger sway bars, the European spec headers and a Stage 1 software flash from a Cleveland area tuner, who runs the operation out of his garage on weekends. The car makes a dyno-corrected 358 horsepower at the wheels. He arrives at Mid-Ohio at 5:45 in the morning. Tech inspection runs at 6:30. The instructor assigned to him is a NASA-certified veteran who has been running the same E46 M3 in HPD E3 for 6 years. The instructor takes him through 3 sessions.
Across 3 20-minute sessions, the instructor demonstrates that the kid's car, with 358 wheel horsepower and an aggressive coilover setup, is being driven by a man whose car control vocabulary stops at 3 of the corner phases Mid-Ohio requires for a clean lap. Specifically, trail braking into the carousel, weight transfer through madness, and throttle modulation out of the S's. The kid is faster on the front straight than his instructor's stock suspension E46 M3. He is 2 seconds slower per lap. Run the math on power to weight as a single variable. A 3,300-pound E46 M3 with 358 horsepower at the wheels has a power to weight ratio that does not move it past a stock M3 with 300 at the wheels when the driver behind the stock car can use the brakes inside the corner. Build 3 reframes everything. He stops asking the dyno questions, he starts asking the data logger questions. The data logger does not lie about the driver. I've watched this reframe play out in 3 different paddocks across the last 15 years. The same kid, the same first HPDE day, the same 4th modification regret. And the kids who survive the reframe are the kids who stop posting dyno screenshots on social media for the next 24 months. If you want the math on which numbers BMW forum culture lies about and which numbers it does not, subscribe and stay. I am one of maybe 3 people on this side of the platform willing to put the numbers next to the chassis codes without selling you a tune. Build 4. The F80 M3 era. The platform is now the F80 chassis, 2014 to 2018 production, S55 inline-6 twin-turbo, 425 factory horsepower in standard trim, 454 in competition trim. He is 36. The year is 2017. He has saved $72,000 across the prior 9 years, partly from a software job he kept through 3 companies and partly from selling Build 3 at a $12,000 profit. The F80 is purchased used at $58,000. The DCT 7-speed transmission, the carbon roof. The S55 platform tunes differently than every BMW engine that came before it. The DME, Digital Motor Electronics, BMW's term for the engine ECU, is no longer a port flash unit you can write to over OBD2 in the driveway. The S55 DME requires a bench flash on the first write, and the bench flash workflow requires opening the DME enclosure, clipping a programming harness to the board, and dumping the binary to a flasher the size of a paperback. He buys an MHD flasher license at $450. He buys Boot Mod 3, the alternative platform, at $595 for the lifetime license and the OBD-flash option. The S55 stock makes 454 crank horsepower. On the dyno at a reputable Akron area shop, on 93-octane pump fuel with a Stage 2 MHD map and a downpipe with high-flow catalyst, the F80 makes 510 at the wheels. On E50 fuel and a Stage 2 Plus map, the same car makes 590 at the wheels. The catch is that the S55 on E50 burns through engine oil at a rate that requires checking the level every other tank. Watch the gauges. The senior tuner he is now corresponding with on a chassis-specific forum tells him. The number is the only honest part of the conversation. The forum thread will lie. The dyno graph will lie. The owner will lie to himself. The gauge will not lie. Read the gauge. He learns to read the wideband AFR sensor, the boost pressure transducer, the oil temperature thermistor, and the differential pressure sensor across the catalyst as a single coupled instrument cluster. He understands the car as one physical system for the first time. Build 4 is the build at which the apprentice stops being an apprentice. Build 5, the diagnostic. April 2019. He is 38. A friend of a friend brings him a 2015 F30335i with an intermittent multiple-cylinder misfire that the local BMW dealer has run through 3 diagnostic visits at $185 an hour and has been unable to reproduce. The car runs fine 70% of the time. The car throws a misfire code on bank 1 cylinders 2 and 4 only on cold mornings below 40 degrees Fahrenheit and only at the first start of the day. The dealer's diagnostic playbook is the BMW ISTA scan tool, the OEM-approved tree of fault isolation questions, and a flat-rate book that pays the technician 0.4 hours per diagnostic event. The playbook does not reproduce the fault. The dealer hands the car back. He keeps the car for 2 nights. He runs it on a cold morning. He pulls live data on the high-pressure fuel pump rail pressure across the first 60 seconds of cold start. The high-pressure fuel pump on the N55 direct injection rail pressure target is 50 bar at cold start, climbing to 200 bar at warm idle. Is delivering 26 bar at the second cold start of a 40-degree morning. The pump is failing intermittently. It is the well-documented N55 HPFP issue, recall adjacent in some markets, that the BMW ISTA tree does not catch, because the failure mode is below the trigger threshold of the OBD pressure sensor for the relevant DTC. The paperwork shows otherwise. The dealer's ISTA report shows 3 clean diagnostics, and the paperwork is wrong in the specific way that the playbook is wrong. He calls the owner. He installs a remanufactured HPFP and pressure tests the fuel rail. The car has not thrown a cold start misfire since. The owner pays him $340 for the part and the labor and tells 5 people in 2 BMW Facebook groups what happened. Build 6. The shop. November 2021. He is 40. He leases a 2-bay independent garage at the corner of Lorraine Road and West 65th Street in Cleveland for $3,400 a month plus utilities. He signs personal guarantees on the lease, on the EPA waste oil contract, on the lift inspection service agreement, and on the BMW ISTA aftermarket independent subscription at $2,800 a year. He hires 1 apprentice and 1 parts manager. He is now responsible for other people's cars at $58,000 and above per project. The line he learns to hold is the technical standard line. Read the contract he writes with every new customer. The contract specifies the modifications he will perform, the modifications he will refuse to perform on grounds of mechanical risk, and the warranty he will and will not honor based on the modification path the customer requests. Customers want him to install a Stage 3 E85 tune on a stock fuel pump F80. He refuses. Customers want him to install a single turbo conversion on an S55 with the stock transmission valve body. He refuses. Customers want a forged internal rotating assembly on a B58 with 80,000 miles. He recommends a teardown inspection first and a quote after the inspection, not before. He doesn't say it out loud at the write-up desk, but the line he is holding is the line between the shop that lasts 10 years and the shop that closes in 3. Most independent BMW shops in Cleveland that opened during the 2016 to 2019 N54 wave were closed by 2023. Build 7. The Cult Shop. By 2032, the shop has grown to 4 bays, 6 full-time technicians,
2 apprentices in a structured 2-year program he wrote and registered with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services for credit hour purposes. The shop has a reputation. The reputation is the diagnostic on impossible misfires, the discipline on refusing modifications the platform cannot support, and the dyno cell he installed in 2029, a Mustang dynamometer chassis dyno with a 1000-amp electric load bank that he uses to verify every customer build before the car leaves. The shop sets a Nürburgring Nordschleife sub-7-minute lap on a B58-powered build in 2038. The lap is filmed. The lap is posted. The shop receives an invitation in 2040 to present its B58 development methodology to the BMW engineering group in Garching, Germany. He goes. He presents. He flies home on a Tuesday, and the shop is at the same address on Lorraine Road. 4 bays still, 6 technicians still. The wall of the customer waiting area now holds a framed certificate from the BMW Group Classic, acknowledging the donation of the shop's first record-setting car to the Heritage Collection in Munich. 3 workbenches across 3 rooms, separated by 4 decades. The first workbench is in the unheated single-car garage on a side street in Lakewood, Ohio, in March 1998. On the bench, the snap-on torque wrench his father bought new in 1979 and never used hard enough to wear out. A helicoil kit from a 1998 Sears parts counter. A Haynes manual with an oil stain on page 62. The second workbench is in the dyno cell of his shop on Lorraine Road in 2034. On the bench, the same snap-on torque wrench, recalibrated 3 times in the intervening years, and now hanging in a tool shadow board under his own initials. The cell holds a customer G80 M3 with a B58 head torqued to spec for the record run.
The third workbench is in the BMW Group Classic Restoration Shop in Munich in 2042. On the bench, a record-setting B58 from the shop on Lorraine Road mounted on an engine stand for the museum exhibit. He has flown in to consult on the display configuration. He brings the same snap-on torque wrench in his carry-on. He hands it to the German technician next to him on the bench and says 1 sentence about torque sequence on the head. The German technician, a 31-year-old apprentice in the BMW Group Classic Restoration program named Jonas, does not yet know that the torque wrench he has just received was bought in 1979 for $42 at a Sears in suburban Cleveland. He will know in 20 years.